What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV, and look, some of you might not like this video. I know one of my subs in particular is gonna be like, "Oh man, he on that James Harden hate shit again." I laid off for a long time, man, because I did enough videos saying how I feel about James Harden and his overall game, man. But look, I'll say this: James Harden is a very good player offensively in today's NBA. All right. Um, as far as putting points up, all right, um, individually, despite the fact that they lost last night to the Memphis Grizzlies. I believe the Rockets are something like 45-27, and they're third overall in the Western Conference, and they're probably going to stay at the third spot, maybe third or fourth or something like that. Nobody's going to catch the Warriors and Nuggets. As a matter of fact, the Warriors need to watch out for the Nuggets because the Warriors have just squandered what was like a 2.5, 3 game lead that they had a couple of weeks ago, and now they're only a half game ahead of Denver, and they might wind up, if they're not careful, with the second seed. Although the Warriors are a good enough team to win on the road, but still, why squander home court advantage when you can attain it? But anyway, my issue with James Harden is this, man. I noticed that the media always do this. The mainstream media always fawn over this guy when he puts up an individually brilliant game. Oh, 57 points for James Harden. Oh, 55. Oh, a 51-point triple double. Oh my God. Oh my God. 55. I'm coming in my pants. Oh God, look at those numbers. They always do this shit, but they don't talk about the fact that they lost. All right. I was looking at that little segment with James Harden and with Stephen A. Smith and Max Kellerman, and he was talking about how one of the reasons why he puts James Harden over Giannis is because the Western Conference is tougher than the Eastern Conference, and I agree with that. But you know what? The Memphis Grizzlies is not a necessarily tough team. All right, they're not a especially tough team, and as a matter of fact, James Harden statistically seems to beat up on tough teams. Most of his 50-point games are against losing teams or teams that just aren't that great. Now, I guess to an extent that's kind of normal. I mean, that's logic. A team that's not very good overall, especially defensively, offensive player is going to eat them up. But still, that kind of shows you how James Harden is not, when you look at it on a per game basis, he's not what, at least in my mind, he's not what the media tends to portray him as. They tend to portray him as this offensive juggernaut, and I don't see him like that. I just see this dude as a chucker, a guy who, despite what the media says, is a very limited offensive player. He has only 3 or 4 fucking moves, and he commits offensive fouls constantly. All right, he's constantly committing offensive fouls and cheating, to get to the foul line and create space to get open. I can't stand his game. And there's a YouTuber named Bruce Bliss who's made a lot of videos, man, really breaking down the deficiencies in James Harden's overall game, man. But yeah, he only beats up on bad teams, the Grizzlies. All right. I remember having a 50-point game against the Nets, who are in the playoffs, but like the 8th seed in the East. The Knicks, when he scored 61 his career high, and they barely won. I mean, the greats, in my opinion, man, like when I think of great scorers, like Michael Jordan, if I'm not mistaken, I think the number was something like out of the 39 50-point games that he had in his career. This is the difference between a guy like Michael Jordan and this guy, James Harden. The 39 50-point games that Michael Jordan had, I think 22 of them came against top 10 overall teams per season. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's why he's the all-time leader in playoff 50-point games. He always did his most damage against the best teams. If he had the mentality that a lot of these stat chasing dudes have now, like I said in previous videos, he would have at least twice as many 50-point games. I mean, there have been so many teams where the Bulls were playing against, scrub teams at the time, like I don't know, just off the top of my head, like the Heat or something when they really sucked, or the Magic when they really sucked. He could have just, padded his numbers and beat up on a bad team with, a starting lineup that shouldn't even be starters, you know. But generally speaking, they played a team-oriented game against those teams. And it was when he was playing against the better teams that he would score. I mean, but these guys, man, I don't know, man. They're no defense. They keep claiming that he's stepped up, but he's the same dude to me. He's a flopper. He's like he's like the culmination of everything that I saw bad starting to happen in the NBA back in the mid 2000s when they changed the rules to help offensive players. Like he's the culmination of all that shit. I didn't like Gilbert Arenas too much because I thought he was a chucker, but man, like this dude. Now recently, he passed Stephen Curry for most 3-point attempts in the season. And this is how much of a chucker this guy was. Now, in the 2015-16 season, Steph Curry shot 402 of 886 from downtown, or unbelievably mind-boggling 45% from three-point range. All right. This guy has 907 three-point attempts this season. And with the number of attempts that he takes, it's very conceivable he might surpass 1,000. Because this guy takes 11, sometimes as many as 23-point attempts in the game. I don't know how many games off the top of my head there are left, but I think they're like 10. So he could pass 1,000 3-pointers. Yet right now he's still 80 3-pointers behind the amount of makes that Curry had in 2015-16. You know, I don't know, man. I don't want to hate on this dude too much, man. But his game just is so horrible to watch, man. For me, man, like dribble, 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 shoot, or dribble, 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 push off drive, create some type of incidental contact. The refs buy it. Ooh, I'm shooting 2 free throws. I mean, it just sucks, man. His footwork is not that great. You can look at him and tell he's not a great athlete. I mean, and I bring up the fact that a lot of his better scoring games come against inferior competition because that's why he's not as successful in the postseason. And I guarantee you, unless the NBA, and yeah, I'm going there with this, unless the NBA somewhat conspires this season to make him look like an MVP and they give him calls, um, I think he's going to struggle in the playoffs, especially as you go into latter rounds. Like when he plays against the better teams, more often than not, he struggles. Now, there are games where he gets it going, he gets hot. Somebody in the comment section can say, oh, well, what about the game where he had 45 points against the Warriors? Yeah, a shooter, you ever heard the expression, a broken clock is right twice a day? So, of course, he's going to have some great shooting games. I remember Gilbert Arenas had 60 points against the Lakers one time, you know? Then the next time he played the Lakers, I think he shot something like 9 for 30, which is a more typical game than the 60-point game. I just look at James Harden, and even last night in the 57-point game, he shot 18 of 39 from the floor, which means that he still missed 21 shots. And for every 50-point or 57-point game, I see like 3 or 4 games where he shot 9 for 27 or 4 of 19 or 9 for 26, or a game where he shot 1 of 11 from 3-point range, 0 for 8, 4 for 19. Why the fuck does someone take that many 3-pointers? I have no idea. Then that's not mentioned. This guy has scored 325 3-point baskets. But it's never mentioned that when a guy like Pete Maravich played, the year he averaged 31 points per game, oftentimes he shot from what would be considered 3-point range. And if you add the 3-point shot in that era, you could recalculate that he probably averaged maybe 34 points per game or something like that. The 3-point shot was in existence before 1979 in the NBA, and that doesn't get mentioned with guys like Jerry West. How many points would these guys have averaged if Jerry West, Pete Maravich, Rick Barry, if these guys were playing in today's NBA? And those guys had a lot more different offensive moves than 3 or 4 tricks, you know. But I don't know, man. He's going to win the MVP. I'm starting to believe that the only other competition that he really has, in my opinion, at that position, I mean, for the MVP right now, is Giannis. At one point in time, Paul George was in discussion, but the OKC has fucking floundered hard. They have fallen off big time. I'm going to do a video about that shit too. A lot of you guys keep thinking I'm some damn Thunder fanboy and a Westbrook fanboy, but yeah, all right, you'll see. I'm no fanboy, man. I'm an admirer of greatness. Yeah, I might be a fan of Muhammad Ali, you know, but I've made videos talking about how Michael Jordan's a sellout. So how the fuck am I a fanboy of his? But I think if I had to take a guess, man, I think they're going to give the MVP. I think they're going to give it to Giannis. Um, and the reason why I think they're going to give it to Giannis is because I'm looking at the other year where you can kind of make a comparison, 2005, 2006. If you look at the fact that Kobe averaged 35.6 points per game that year, 35.4, excuse me, points per game that year. Rick Barry averaged 35.6 points per game one year. But you look at that, and the fact that he took that roster to the playoffs with 45 victories, a lot of people said that should have been enough to give him the MVP, but instead they gave it to Steve Nash. I think Phoenix might have won 54 games that year, something like that. And many people question how he won the MVP the second time. But, I'm thinking they might reward overall team success. Plus, Giannis Antetokounmpo has a really good case. I mean, he leads the NBA in PER. He's putting up, like 26 points, almost 13 rebounds, 6 assists. He pads his numbers too, and he has some limitations offensively as well. But what Milwaukee's doing this year is exceptional. Statistically, this is going to be their best overall season since the early 1980s, at least, or the mid 80s. Definitely the 80s. They're on pace to win 60 games, something they haven't done since, I think, the 80-81 season. And Milwaukee, you look at the history of that team, and the futility they've been in the last 30 years almost, I think I'll give it to Milwaukee, man. Well, Giannis. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe what James Harden doing is that remarkable, but I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I'm not really impressed with the fact he's averaging 36 points per game this year. I'm just not. I don't. He's like almost like a real life video player. Like a video game baller, man. Like the way he scores, it seems fake. I, it just seems like the way somebody would play on an NBA game if they only care about padding their stats and shit. Like just shooting a bunch of threes, shooting threes and playing, shooting 3-pointers and driving to the basket when the defense is playing matador defense and shit. Just easy buckets, but yet somehow you're still only shooting 43% from the floor. I just don't get it, man. Like people talk about this guy's killing it, and yeah, the true shooting percentage and all those numbers seem high, but I look at the field goal percentage, it still says 43%. All right, I understand he shoots a lot of 3-pointers and all that, but Steph Curry shoots a lot of threes and he shoots close to 50%. That to me is a mark of a great scorer and shooter. James Harden is a fucking chucker. Okay? And I think he's going to get exposed in the playoffs. But tell me how much you hate my video and how stupid I am.